ladies, whoever's with us now, we mentioned that Sara Karmely is also an author, and she wrote 2 amazing books about mikvah. This is one of them. One is the Words to Hear with the Heart, and the other one is Stories to Hear with the Heart. And these are beautiful books full of stories and inspiration. And Sara Karmely will also tell us stuff that also are in her books. And if for extra information and inspiration, we really recommend it. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. You can stay unmuted for now, and when we start, we'll mute everyone. Would love to see your face if you can, but no pressure, only if you can. Hi, Chavi. Thank you for signing. We're going to wait just a few more minutes and then we'll start, and hopefully whoever joins in will catch up. If you have a tzedakah box with you, it'll be nice to put tzedakah before we start. If you don't, I will put it on behalf of everyone. Looks like we have people from all over. It's so nice. We have Crown Heights, we have Passaic, we have China. We have
Williamsburg.
Williamsburg. I love it. It's so nice. Zoom has opened up so much opportunity for all of us to connect. It's beautiful. If you still have friends that might benefit from this class, and since we didn't start, quickly text them the Zoom link.
That's what I want to do.
And have them join us. We have enough space for everyone. We'll probably have people joining in as we start. You are going to enjoy amazing stories and inspiration, and this will be very well time spent. I'm going to give 2 more minutes and then we're going to start.
Maybe there, I will say, I will make a big cake. There.
Oh, I love the voices of children. Welcome, everyone.
Also, please switch to composition and
Yes.
it's my turn to play because you have
Why is he playing?
and if
No,
anybody gets
he doesn't get to play at all.
I got to play switch.
I just, no, I said, you're in pajamas? Oh, it always looks the same. Okay. You judged your teeth. You made your teeth into smoothie. Please don't judge your teeth. Okay, you look amazing. Stop living yourself. Mamu, could you get?
Sorry, everyone. I muted whoever I thought might want to be muted, but if you want to unmute, you can say hi. We would love to see your face. If not, we're just happy to have you. And I think we should start. We're on recording, so whoever will join us can catch up with the recording. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. It's a very, very, very special day, and it's a very special class. And we have 2 amazing speakers today. We have Dinie Greenberg from China, and we have Sara Karmely. Both are amazing speakers in the topic of mikvah and Ta'arat HaMishpacha, and in general in teaching and educating women. Thank you, everyone, for joining. If you're just joining now, before I introduce our speakers, I would like to start the class with a Tehillim kapitel of the Rebbe. just to give everyone a few more minutes. שיר למעלות אשא עיניי אל ההרים הן יבוא עזרי, עזרי מעם השם עושה שמיים וארץ, אל יתן למוט רגליך, אל ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא ישן שומר ישראל, אדוני שומרך, אדוני צילך על יד ימינך, יומם השמש לא יככב וירח בלילה, אדוני ישמרך מכל רע ישמור את נפשך, אדוני ישמור צעדך ובואך מעתה ועד עולם. Hi everyone, thank you for whoever joined us. And we are going to start. If you have any friends who can join us, please share the link with them. We would love for more women to be on the Zoom with us. We have tonight two amazing speakers. We have Sara Karmely and Dinie Greenberg. Dinie Greenberg, I had the pleasure to have her as my neighbor for a very short time. And she had to go back to her shlichus in China. They have a Chabad house there. Dinie teaches, she teaches about mikvah. They have a big Chabad house. They host a lot of people. They have a preschool. They have so many things going on there. And she took the time to sit with us today and to help us in this endeavor of learning about Taharat HaMishpacha and about mikvah. And we are really, this is not the first time we're doing this class this year. We started to do the Zoom about Taharat HaMishpacha, and we're opening it in a very kind of, I guess, very nice family manner. Like we want to feel close and together and open to ask questions. This is really a platform for each and every one of you to be able to listen and to ask questions and to engage. And we want to make this very in your like really as a service to all the women out there that can benefit from information that we might not know sometimes and sometimes maybe not want to ask. So we are going to introduce stories and a little bit of laws about Taharat HaMishpacha, but everything in a very interesting manner. If you have any questions and you will want to ask, so we will do the questions at the end. You can post them on the chat. I'll also post an email if you don't feel comfortable writing it in the chat and you want to email it to me, and I will introduce the questions afterwards. So with no further ado, thank you for being here tonight. And Dinie, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Shelley. So I was introduced first only because I'm speaking first, but the inspiration for a lot of women in mikvah and in Taharat HaMishpacha is really our next speaker, Mrs. Sara Karmely, who we've been raised on her stories and her journey and the blessings and the guidance that she had from the Rebbe on this topic. Here's her book being showcased. So I'll just give a little introduction and then we'll be very happy to hear from Mrs. Karmely for pearls of wisdom. So amongst all the stories that we've heard, and like Shelley just showed us in the book, we were raised on stories in our family of keeping mikvah under very dire circumstances. Our grandparents came from Russia. At that time it was communist Russia, and it was very difficult to keep Judaism. It was very difficult to find mikvahs, to find a kosher mikvah. Many times the trip was long and arduous and fraught with a lot of difficulties and self-sacrifice. And we always knew the stories of people who broke ice and, dipped in rivers. And here we were fetching or complaining that maybe our mikvah wasn't perfect. And once my dear grandmother said to me, I understand it may be hard for you. You have to travel to Hong Kong. We didn't have a mikvah in China at that time. And it's difficult. But, I remember when my mother went to the mikvah, she tells me, and she went into a well. And I had to hold the rope on the other side. So it's hard for you. Compared to this, it's very hard to to think that there's any difficulties. But these are the stories I grew up on. Another woman that I recently met in New York when we were there last year and had the privilege of being Shelley's neighbor, she said, "Oh, I know who your grandmother is." One time, my grandmother, her mother, and another woman had to go to the mikvah. And again, it was a difficult time period and a difficult journey, and it was freezing. And when they finally got to the mikvah, under duress, the person who was holding the mikvah who was the caretaker of the mikveh there in Russia, said, "Oh, I'm really sorry, but I didn't know you were coming tonight. I thought you were coming tomorrow night, and the mikveh is freezing. I didn't warm it up. You know, deep Russian winter, and there's no way you can go in. It's really, really dangerous for your health." And the woman said, "That's really okay. We're really okay with it. This is very important for us, and we'd like to go anyway." And he says, "No, under no circumstances. I'm not taking this in my responsibility. There's a 3 young women, and impossible, and this is dangerous." And they came up with a plan. They said, "We understand what you're thinking, and tomorrow night when we come, we don't want to bother you. So how about if you just show us where the mikveh is, and we'll just have a look." Went to have a look, and within a very short time, while they were having a look, every one of them did. The freezing, freezing cold mikveh, and the tremendous benefit that they had from that, and the importance that it held for them was so clear. So we have the olden day stories of mikveh and of self-sacrifice for mikveh, and then we have our modern day stories of natural challenges, of natural mikveh waters. Some of them we shared last time. I'm not sure how many are on the Zoom now on part 1 that are on part 2. So I'll just share very, very briefly. We had a beautiful Kala who needed to go to the mikveh, a bride, and we didn't have a mikveh in Shanghai at that time. So we needed to find a way to go into a natural body of water. And by a series of very comical but meaningful occurrences, whereas when I went to check out this natural body of water, it was summer and the tide was low and it was beautiful. And it was, it was the winter and the tide was low and it was very clear and it was so picturesque. And I thought it would be the most beautiful spot for a pilot to go to for the first time. And when we got there, the water was very high and murky and we couldn't even see where the steps were because the tide was so high. And started raining and anything that could possibly go wrong, what we would think would go wrong, could go wrong. And then we didn't know how to get the Kala in because the tide was so high. And when we finally got in, and thankfully, because she didn't swim, we had a life vest and we're, laying there on our tummies and supporting her, ready to let go just for a second. And then 2 of her family members jumped in. So we had many ladies swimming in the water and then we couldn't figure out how to get them out. And this whole mikveh escapade was very disturbing for me. Speaking about swimming, pardon the pun, but my head was swimming. And I said to her, "Oh, you must have had a wonderful experience to write about and to tell your family about for generations to come." And then she said to me very seriously, she said, "This was very, very meaningful for me because I felt connected to the generations of Jewish women in my family who had also come from Eastern Europe and generations back, all the way back to our great-great-great-grandmother, our matriarch, Sara." So she felt very connected and it was very, very holy and very special for her. And I'd like to share one more story about our natural waters, again, before we had our mikveh in Shanghai, which we now call our spa for the soul. We had a woman who was trying to conceive. And again, she wasn't able to fly to Hong Kong to go to the mikveh. And she went to these natural waters. And it was, again, very cold, middle of January. We weren't sure if it was the right thing to do. We, consulted with the rabbi. We said, "How do we do this?" And she spoke with the rabbi and she decided that she's going. So with 2 huge torches and friends and a lot of support and direction, she jumped in those freezing waters. And this is in this century. This is not a story of the past, it's a story of today. Afterwards, a few months later, when we were reminiscing on the story, I said, "So how was and what are your feelings about it? What are your thoughts?" And she says, "It was the most inspiring, beautiful, and meaningful evening of my life. And thank God I'm pregnant." That mitzvah really helped to bring forth the blessing that she was looking for. So the question is, why is mikvah so important? So important to all of these people and the many stories that you'll read in Sara's book or that you have, on that are being shared today, inspirational stories about mikvah. What is and so important about under these circumstances, people are willing to risk, are willing to make strides, make efforts. Sometimes it's just timing issues. Sometimes it's my mother-in-law came tonight and she's sleeping over, surprise, right? There can always be something that might feel a little challenging. about mikvah. I remember taking a woman here at the mikvah at 2:00 in the morning after arriving home from a trip. And I remember another time taking somebody at 4 a.m. before a trip. There was another woman who traveled here 4 hours to come by train from another city to dip in the mikvah. Another one who came by car for hours and hours. So here we have women throughout generations, throughout history, and even today, who are really, really putting out a huge, tremendous effort for mikvah. And the question is, why? So we were thinking about it a little bit, and we realized that everything that goes on today in our world, we can parallel, right, and take a lesson from. And today we have a lot of awareness about ourselves. There's a lot of mental health awareness. There's a lot of self-awareness. And we know and we understand that in order to be truly happy, really have to be one with ourselves. We have to be complete with who we are. It may not be always the perfect me that I'm looking for, right? But once I know who I am, then I can grow and I can be happy in my life and in my surroundings. And if we want to parallel that, actually, there's a spiritual parallel to that. In order for me to be truly happy, to be truly whole and complete with myself, I need to be true to myself. Now, who's the real me? Who's the myself that I need to be true to? That will make me truly happy. Happy in my relationships with myself, with Hashem, with my spouse, with my family, with my community, with the world around me. Who's the true me? Is it my wants and my desires? Is it, my whims? Is it things that people are expecting from me socially? When we really have to get down to being true to ourselves, we can look to our Jewish tradition and learn from our Jewish mysticism. We learn from the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe explains to us that we're actually comprised of two souls, right? We have our godly soul, we have our natural soul, and they're both going to be battling for rights. But which one is the true us? Which one do we really need to tend to? And that, I think, holds the secret of the power of mikvah. If we want to be truly happy, the true us is the soul that's within us, the soul that's infused by Hashem into us. And that's really a part of Hashem himself, right? So every soul is a part of God, and that's what gives us life. Now, if we want to be truly happy, we need to tap into that part of ourselves. So herein comes the mitzvah of mikvah. It may not be so comfortable sometimes. It may be very beautiful other times. But what is giving us that the motivation and the importance of keeping this mitzvah is because we know that it's the true me. We're holy. Hashem created us holy. And Hashem told us that in order to maintain and sustain this holiness in ourselves, in our relationship, with other people, with our spouse, with our children, we need the mikvah. We need those holy waters. So mikvah in the Torah is called Mayim Chaim, living waters. It's coming from Hashem, untouched by man, until it gets into the mikvah. It's completely and directly sourced from Hashem. So by us dipping into the mikvah, we're getting in touch and we're infusing ourselves, really engulfing ourselves in this spirit of holiness that we need. So here we have in our daily life, different mitzvahs that we know correspond to different things, right? Let's say it says in the Torah that we give tzedakah and Hashem will help us and Hashem will give us, right? We know that we light Shabbat candles and it brings light into our lives and it brings guidance spiritually and physically. And mikvah is similar in that way, that we know that it brings blessing to all of us. It brings blessing to us, our soul. It brings blessing to our husbands because we're two souls connected. It brings blessings to our family because, again, we're all connected. And it brings blessing to our whole world. Like we're soul sisters, right? Never heard that phrase? Because we're all connected. So by me choosing to go to the mikvah, actually, I'm being very true to myself. And when I'm truly happy inside, when my soul is happy, then I'm happy. I share that happiness. And it's not just for me. It's actually affecting everyone. It's affecting the whole world. So your mitzvah is affecting me. My mitzvah is affecting you. We can have a very, very happy nation, community, and world. And it all starts with us, with our special mitzvah of mikvah. So this is just a little introduction about the holiness and the importance of mikvah and why we hear all these stories. Why is mikvah so important to so many people? And why are people taking great strides to keep this in any and every situation? Now, today, thank God, we are so blessed that we have beautiful mikvahs around the world. And we have wonderful mikvah teachers who explain to us the meaning of mikvah and the details of how we keep mikvah. And we are so blessed that we have come back to speaking openly.
So could you bring me Nagelwasser also?
In such a beautiful way that really spreads joy and happiness and guidance to all of us. And so I would like to ask Mrs. Sara Karmely to please share with us her words of wisdom and experience from teaching for years and years about this wonderful mitzvah.
Dinie, thank you so much for inspiring us. You are an inspiration just to speak to you. What you're doing out there, Hashem should bless you. How many people out there you're helping, people who live there and people who pass through. Yashikar to you, really. Hashem should thank you.
Sara, before you continue, I just, we have a lot of ladies that joined us as we started. So I just wanted to just mention again that we are doing this as kind of an introduction class, and we are opening it also for questions at the end. So please feel free to write down any questions that you have on the chat, or you can email it to the email that I put on the chat. And now Dinie Greenberg just finished her part of the talk for now, and then Sara Karmely is taking over. Sara Karmely is also the author of 2 amazing books. One of them I'm holding in my hand. The other one is Words to Hear with the Heart and Stories to Hear with the Heart. These are the 2 books. If you need the links for it, I can send you the links. And you'll be able to buy them. You can order them on Amazon, and they're sold.
No, order it. You have to just order it for me, not for Amazon.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll get you all the information. So Sara, you can take over. And
thank you so much. Thank you also, Shelley, for doing this. You do it. You're doing an amazing job as usual. You know, years and years ago, I remember for 15 years. I had the zuchus of taking many people to the Rebbe. I used to take them not just for dollars. This is before dollars. I used to take them for mincha time. The Rebbe would come out and down mincha and walk back again. And I would go 7:70, stand in the lobby, take people in with issues, challenges, problems, all sorts of issues, ranging from lack of shalom bayis or problems with children, not having children, just name it. They had many, many issues. I'm just letting you know that without fail, every time I would take them in and introduce them to the Rebbe would tell me, quote, please tell the lady to keep the laws of Taras Mishpacha biduk, exact. I'm ashamed to admit that many times I doubted, how can that woman go to the mikveh after her husband's been treating it? You should know certain issues that are really too embarrassing to talk about, but I should tell her to go to the mikveh after he's treated her like that? Well, of course I had to do it. I had to tell her, and our teacher also, the laws of Taras Mishpacha. I saw miracles, mamish miracles. If I wouldn't have seen it, I wouldn't believe. All sorts of miracles that, of course, Hashem did it, because he's just saying, if you go according to the blueprint of Torah, one of which is keeping the house mishpacha, of course you're going to see the results. Of course you're going to see the miracles. In my books, I actually wrote, I changed the names, obviously. In my book, I wrote about these women who went in, and I saw miracles on them. So when the Rebbe said, mikveh exact, of course we have to do the best we can. We don't have to cross the T's and dot the I's, but when you do keep everything exact, it processes the way it's supposed to be, like the dot, the .org or .com, that insignificant dot, what does it mean? It means trying your best to do the best. It's keeping Taras Mishpacha is one of the 3 mitzvahs of the Jewish woman. As we know, Sara Imenu kept all 3. She would light Shabbos candles, and a whole week those candles stay lit. She made challah, and there was a blessing on her dough. And of course, over her tent where she lived, there was a cloud. The cloud was not a rain cloud, it's the Shekhinah of God. According to Zohar, Hashem is male and female. The male aspect of Hashem is HaKodesh Baruch Hu, the feminine aspect is the Shekhinah. So we women, when we keep the laws of mikvah, we're drawing down Hashem's blessings on our own whole home. The mikvah is a place we go to, but the mitzvah is called Taharat HaMishpacha. Tahara means purity, Mishpacha means family, which is kind of strange. Why is this not called Taharat Isha, purity of the woman? Because just the woman goes, not the whole Mishpacha. The obvious answer is, when a woman keeps this mitzvah, she's affecting her own body and soul, her husbands, her children, her grandchildren, her mom, her grandmother. The entire mishpacha is affected through you, the Jewish woman. Why is this called purity of the family? This is an answer to a misconception many people have. When I teach brides, when I talk about it, people ask me, this was good in the olden days. They did not have indoor plumbing. Nowadays, come on, we don't need to go to mikveh because we have showers. We're not dirty. It's a misconception to think that you go to the mikveh for physical cleanliness. One of the laws of going to a mikveh, you have to be spotlessly clean physically. But going to the mikveh is not for cleanliness of the body. It's for purification of your godly soul. You have a body and you have a soul. This is your purification of your godly soul. We consist of body and soul. Your body is compared to the challah, the mitzvah of challah we make, it's a chomer. Your soul is represented by the candles we light. So what is joining the body and soul together in the right way, in a healthy way? The laws of Taras Mishpach. The word mikveh in Hebrew, if you read it, it could be read as mekaveh, hope, because it is the hope of the Jewish people. It really is. It's something we women keep, and we know how important it is. It's such an important mitzvah that there's a law, there's a halacha, that if there's a town and they do not have enough money for a shul, a sefer Torah, and a mikveh, sell the shul, sell the sefer Torah, and build a mikveh. Why? Because you can daven to Hashem everywhere. He's with us right now. But without keeping Taras Mishpacha, it doesn't work. We want the Jewish people to continue holy way. Anybody has ever been to Masada in Israel? It's a dry desert, no water. Excavations have been done, and archaeologists have seen that there are mikvahs out there. I've seen it with my own eyes. In this dry desert with no water, they could not be together without mikvah. Good news for everybody. It's never too late to keep Taharat Mishpacha. Many women ask me, when I go around the world speaking, they say, I wish I would have known about this. It's kind of late for me because I already had my children. Never too late. Even after menopause, go at least one last time. It's retroactive. Learn, of course, how to do it this one last time. Learn with somebody who can teach you. And it's retroactive. Hashem is very kind. Being a Baal Tshuva and coming back to Hashem is even a higher level than someone who's never been there, done that. I'd like to share with you some stories because I know that this is something that it's a basis of a Jewish marriage. It is. But of course, kashrus, keeping kosher, keeping Shabbos, we all have to keep that. But if a woman doesn't keep Taharas Mishpach, she's not doing the purpose why she's in this world. Just want to share this because Dinie was talking about, mikveh in China. This was many years ago, before my menopause. I was going to Thailand with my husband, and it was landing on a Thursday night, I remember, and I had to go to the mikveh. So I forgot to call the shluch over there to tell her, please heat up the mikveh for me. By parenthesis, 40 years ago, the Rebbe told the 4 couples living in Thailand, older couples, please build a mikveh. And I figured, for who? Who's going to go to mikveh? Just 4 old couples. Baruch Hashem, finally they did it. Abba Kanta and his wife made a mikveh, and you wouldn't believe how many people use it. Anyway, we fly into Thailand, and I need to go to the mikveh, and I called the Rebbetzin, and she said, "Oh, I didn't heat up the mikveh." I said, "Please, Nachami, I'm happy to go to a room temperature mikveh, because Thailand, anybody who's been there in the summer, when you walk in the street, it's like you're walking in a steam bath. Mamish, like so hot, it's like you're in a steam bath." So I figured, oh, it must be a machai to go to a mikveh that's room temperature. It's going to be refreshing. Oy vey, I didn't realize going into that water, room temperature, not freezing. When I came out, I was blue. I couldn't talk. And I was sobbing. I was like, how did those women go into the icy rivers? How? So really, that really taught me a big lesson to talk about women going to, and I just went to a room temperature mikveh, and it was ridiculously cold. Your body reacts to it. So I just want to share with a few stories with you. As a kind of a parenthesis, some women ask me, "Mrs. Karmely, isn't this something that the rabbis made up? Come on." I said, "Please, no man will make a rule where he cannot be intimate with his wife for 12 days out of the month. Yes, it's written in the Torah, many places. One example I'll give. The Parsha Acharemot. It's a parsha we read Yom Kippur time. Check it, ladies, everybody is on this chat. Check out what we read Yom Kippur in the Mincha time, when you're going to be shocked what we read on the holiest of days. We read about forbidden intimate relations, forbidden sexual relations, where a man is forbidden to have relations with. And it kind of like shocking, because it's written very graphically. He's not allowed to have relations with his mother, mother-in-law, sister, sister-in-law, granddaughter, daughter-in-law, animals, men. I mean, totally everything you can imagine. In between these forbidden sexual relations, black and white, it's written, not only he's not allowed to have relations with, but even a touch, a woman who has not been to the mikveh, a woman in her nida status, means before she's been to the mikveh. And you kind of think, well, what's the reason of this? What's the reason behind this? And if there's time, I'd like to share that. But another thing about Yom Kippur, people should know. Most people tell me I always keep Yom Kippur. It's something I always keep. If I keep nothing else, I keep Yom Kippur. The laws of mikveh are more stringent than the laws of Yom Kippur. How so? Because if somebody is ill, Chas v'shalom on Yom Kippur, not only she can, but she or he can, they must drink, let's say, 1 ounce every 10 minutes in order to stay alive. So there's a loophole on Yom Kippur. There's no loophole for mikveh. Nobody can say, oh, this month you can go to mikveh. Yeah, you can be with your husband. There's no such thing. So I'd like to share with you a few things. This actually happened during COVID time. This really just a recent event. COVID was rampant, and everybody was very nervous to go to the mikveh because, hello, COVID, everyone was terrified to do anything. And this story really happened. I have a group of ladies I teach in Crown Heights every so often. They're older now. I'd started teaching when they were still young. Now, Baruch Hashem, they're all bobbies and they have grandchildren. So one of those ladies actually called me and told me the story. Of course, no mention of names. She told me the following. She said, my daughter was getting married, and she got married, and she was very, very angry and upset because she was stuck in this tiny apartment with her chassan. And of course, they weren't allowed to be together. And it was really very hard for her. She was saying, why can't the rabbis find a way out that we don't have to be, it's so hard to stay in a room with my husband and not going out, and we cannot touch him. She was very upset about it, and she was really doubting this whole mitzvah thing. Well, what happened? In through the door walks in her husband's brother and said that their father is very, very ill with the COVID. The doctors have just given up on him. He's slipping into a coma. There's nothing to be done. Please daven for him. So she said, me and my husband, it shook us up so much. So we both turned to daven to Hashem. Her husband picked up Tehillim, and she picked up her yom yom. She said, I just opened it at random. There's no such thing as random. And it fell out to the Hayom Yom where the Rebbe is saying how Taras Mishpacha saves lives. It's actually written to mikveh saves lives. So it shook her up and she decided, I'm going to be so careful and so strict with all the halachas and all the chumras even. She says, now the time came, I went to the mikveh. I didn't put it off. I went. When I came home, they told me the moment she went into the mikveh and she toppled, the father-in-law woke up, came out of his coma, and came. This is a true story that just happened just recently in COVID time. So yes, Taras Mishpah saves lives, spiritual lives, physical lives. Baruch Hashem, there's many women over the years, 40 years, that I had the privilege of teaching Taras Mishpah. It was many years ago when I moved here. I'm a wandering Jew. I'm Persian origin, born in India because they were living in India at the time. Lived in London, grew up in London, that's where my accent is from. Got married and moved to Italy where I met Chabad in Italy. And now I'm living in New York. Next stop will be Yerushalayim with Moshe. We're together, I mean. So when I moved here, the rabbi from my community asked me, Mrs. Karmely, please, I'm sending you brides and women to teach Taras Mishpacha. I took it very serious. I took 4 teachers training courses, 4, to make sure I really got it. So I started to teach. It was after, I think, about 6 months or so, I got very nervous because I started to think, whoa, maybe if I'm not teaching it right or they didn't get it right and I don't keep it right, it's a big achrayus for me. I don't think I could do this. And I told the Rebbe, I cannot do this. And he looked at me very, very, with his piercing blue eyes. He said, not only you can do this, but you must do this. And I want to be partners with you. This was before dollars. The Rebbe gave me, through the secretary, gave me $15 for that group of women. I did not know how many women were coming that night. These are the days before Zoom. I had to do it in person. Well, he gave me $15. 14 women came and myself made 15. And since then, I really feel, I know that he's still with me as my partner. And I know that the Rebbe, till this day, I feel is encouraging women to keep this mitzvah as best as we possibly can. Some women come and tell me, well, I'd like to, but my husband doesn't want. You know what? I had to struggle with that. If I can do it, anyone can do it. One woman actually happened to not recently, it's a few years ago. This lady called me and she told me, I don't know what to do. She said, my husband told me, if you go to the mikveh, I'm divorcing you. Ew, you want to go into water, dirty water with all those women who've been there? Forget it. I don't agree to it. So I had to arrange for her, of course, a Rav. I consulted a Rav, and he gave a special heta that she should go on the 8th day during the day so the husband wouldn't know that she's going to the mikveh. So she went, it was like a year or so she was doing this. And one day she said, what is this? I'm not living in Russia. I'm going to tell him. What, I should be scared to tell my husband? I'm going to tell him I'm going to go to mikveh. She did. She told him when she came back from the mikveh, he got very mad. He went and slept in the children's room and she called me up the next day, hysterical, crying. What do I do? I said to her, there's something going on that's not right. Come to me, let's do a review class, because I didn't learn Taras Mishpah with her. Turned out that she was skipping the bedikas, skipping the internal examination the woman has to do for 7 days. She was skipping them. I said, but why? She said, I just figured I'll just play it by ear. Why do I need to do that? I said, no, it has to be exact. You have to do those bedikas. Baruch Hashem, she started to do it. Wonder of wonders, her husband not only agreed, but he actually would drive her to the mikveh, go to the mikveh. How do you explain this? Again, .com.org, mikveh b'diuk. Another story that actually happened to a woman who left Iran during the revolution. I hosted her in my home in Italy when they stopped over in Italy. Then she came to the States and I actually met up with her again. This was many years after she lived here. Now, to see this woman, you think she has everything in life. Her husband owns under 100 boutiques in Manhattan. Every time I'll see her with a new set of beautiful clothes, jewelry, and wonderful children, magnificent house in Great Neck. I was very shocked when she told me, I'm thinking of getting a divorce. I said, excuse me? What are you lacking? She says, well, she was very open. She said, I think my husband is having an affair. And he only looks to me as, a word she used was, a sex object. That's all I'm there for him. He doesn't look to me as me, and I can't take this anymore. I said, you're going to come and learn about mikveh with me. She laughed. She says, you don't understand. We're not religious. You know, we don't keep Shabbos, don't keep kosher. I'd be a hypocrite if I was keeping this, right? Wrong. That's a Yetzer Hara telling us keep everything or nothing. I said, if you're Jewish and you're a woman and you're married, you keep the laws of mikveh. So I started to teach her the laws, and I was kind of nervous because she was married already 12 years, never told him she can't be with him. So I explained how to do it. And finally the day came when she had to tell him, sorry, I cannot be with you. So she called me to tell me, and I was kind of nervous. Okay, how did he react? She had surprise in her voice. She says, you know, Sara, he turned around and looked at me like he's looking at me for this first time, because he could not be with her. Till this day, I know she's not keeping Shabbos or kosher, but I know she's keeping Taras Mishpach, because she's always calling me with different questions and miracle. She said her husband changed towards her. Why? Because she became the forbidden fruit. Because people want forbidden fruit. So Hashem said, you want forbidden fruit? 12 days out of the month, your husband is forbidden to you. 12 days out of the month, your wife is forbidden to you. This is actually a very lovely chart. I think Dinie's aunt actually made this chart, and I use it in her schools. So anybody wants this chart, I can send it to you. So what I'm trying to say is that Hashem doesn't give us laws to punish us, Has v'shalom. These laws is to help us, to nurture us. It's not that Hashem is cruel. When people tell me, but it's so hard. It's so hard to stay away from one another for 12 days. I tell brides, I bless you that it should be hard. If it's easy, you're in trouble. But anything that's difficult, it's worth it in the end. Having a baby is not easy, but it's worth it in the end. So Hashem gave us these laws for our benefit. When a couple can always be together 24/7, every single night of the year, that's wonderful. But what happens if you never separated? I'll tell you what happens. Boring. She's always there, he's always there. Who can I have? Unfortunately, Hashem created us with this Hashem, that we want forbidden fruit. I never keep chocolate in the house because I know I'm going to finish it. So Hashem says, no. If you're always together, you're going to become bored and boring. I want you to become desirable and desirous one another. So this separation is for the purpose for becoming even closer. I now share something with you. I know we're not going into halachas tonight, but these couple of stories actually illustrate without even giving halachas. So I'm going to share this with you. I had a woman coming to me. She did not learn mikveh with me. She came to for a counseling session. I do counseling. And she sits down and she starts to cry. She was married for 6 months. I said, what's the problem? She said, well, I go to the mikveh. When I come home, my husband cannot physically have relations with me. He cannot perform sexually with me. I said, well, I find that's very strange because the Rebbe said that keeping Taras Mishpach brings intimacy. Let's learn. We started to learn, and she was honest enough. She told me, no, we sleep in one bed the whole month. I like to just sleep in his arms. I feel more cozy, I feel more. I said, really? And how would he react to that? She says, oh, he really believes in mikveh. He's very good at controlling himself. What was going on here? It really happened. This poor guy was brainwashing himself to think, don't be aroused, don't be turned on, it's not allowed. He did such a good job that when she would come up from the mikveh, he couldn't say, now be aroused. Now, it doesn't work that way. I told her you have to have 2 beds. Oh, she said it's very difficult because my bedroom, is smaller. I said, you came to me for advice. I'm telling you, it's not going to work. You have to have 2 beds. In the end, Baruch Hashem, she listened. She got this futon that stayed in her room, the separate bed, and it worked. The Rebbe said, quote, if you're close when you should be far, then you're going to be far when you should be close. And it's really true. You have to realize Hashem gives all these laws for our good, for our benefit, not Hashem to punish us. Okay, this next story really happened in LA. And just these stories illustrate better than all the halakhas, which doesn't mean to say you don't have the halakha class. This really happened in LA quite a few years ago, actually. I flew in, it was on a Tuesday. I remember they picked me up from the airport, took me straight to the place I was speaking, the valley, a very big shul. It was for couples on Taras Mishpach, on mikveh and shalom bayis, relationships. So I spoke. After I finished speaking, I was kind of tired because, there's 3 hours difference between LA and New York. And there were people waiting to talk to me one-on-one, which is fine. I like that. Even though I was tired, I made time for that. Well, finally, I noticed there was one couple who wanted to be the last ones in the room because they allowed everyone to go before them. Finally, everybody left this big auditorium. Only people left in the shul was myself, the husband, and the wife. Just like that. I was very tired because it was like past midnight, my New York time. But I said, how can I help you? And this is what happened. The wife points to the husband, tells me, this is my husband. I don't love him anymore. Whoa. Kind of blew me away the way she said it very bluntly. I turned around to see the reaction of her husband, and it really broke my heart. Because although he was smiling, he'd gone red and there was tears coming down his face. I told myself, Sarah, no matter what, no matter how tired you are, see if you can help. It's heartbreaking, see this. Well, she continued, she said, when we got married, she said, we were, quote, starry-eyed. We were starry-eyed. I couldn't wait to be with him. But now, it turns me cold. The words she used, actually, he doesn't turn me on anymore. I don't have desire for him. Is my marriage over? But all the time she was talking, I couldn't help noticing they were being kind of physical. She was touching him. He was brushing lint off her jacket. They kept touching each other. So I said to her, who am I to tell you what to do? Someone much wiser than myself. But the Lubavitcher Rebbe says, when you keep Taras Mishpacha, it brings intimacy and shalom bayis. Are you doing that? Well, she was very indignant. She said, what do you mean? Don't you say I'm wearing a shaitel? I'm religious. Of course we keep mikveh. I didn't know how to tell about the exact part. I said, it's Tuesday night, this coming Shabbos. I'm going to be speaking in San Diego, a 2-hour drive away from Los Angeles. And I'm speaking in a beautiful hotel. It's going to be on relationships. I want you to leave your children with family, come on in and with us and make it a honeymoon. Because the Rebbe said, actually, to me, it's good to go on honeymoon alone with the husband. Well, she laughed and she says, thank you, but not honeymoon, you see, because I won't be going to the mikveh till after Shabbos. I said, wait a minute. Here you're telling me you keep Taras Mishpach, but you're really not keeping it properly because you're not allowed to touch one another until after you've been in a mikveh. So you're really not keeping it properly. So she fell back. She says, you know what? It's true. Maybe I've slipped up a bit on the laws. Maybe over the years of having children, maybe I've slipped up on the laws. Yes, I'm not keeping exact. I got kind of tired at this point. I said, listen, you asked me advice, I'm giving you 2. Relearn and keep the laws of Taras Mishpacha. And number 2, come on down to this wonderful seminar in this hotel. It's a beautiful hotel. Bring the children. Yes, honey, we're not hungry. Just come on down. It's going to be good. Fast forward now, that was Tuesday night. Fast forward now to Friday. The following Friday, they took me down to the hotel. And she came with her husband and the kids. And she approached me. She says, Sarah, I'm kind of looking forward this time to going to the mikveh. I said, wow, good. Next day, Shabbos day, I was walking into one of the rooms that was designated to be the shul in that hotel. That lady was waiting for me. She pulls me to the side and she tells me, Sarah, I had such amazing dream last night. It was so real. It was kind of graphic. It was very real. I dreamt in my dream that I was being intimate with my husband. And in my dream, I dreamt, you haven't been to the mikveh yet. I said, really? Wow. You don't get it? Sorry, you don't get it. I'm dreaming of being with my husband. When was the last time I ever dreamt of being intimate with my husband? The true story. And what does it mean? From Tuesday till Shabbos, just a few days, a whole dynamic change to a woman thinking she doesn't connect with the husband anymore, to a woman who's dreaming of being with him. Because when you keep the laws exact, it processes out exact. There's something I didn't like though. What do you mean when you're newlywed, you were starry-eyed, now I'm not, so is it over? It's a fallacy. To always be starry-eyed, not really. Sometimes you're starry-eyed, sometimes you're not, and that's fine. It's okay. It's like, marriage is like an EKG. You know, I'm older than everyone. EKG is when you're attached to this monitor and the lines are going up and down. Straight line, you're in trouble. Marriage is like an EKG. Sometimes it's up and you can't wait to be with him, and sometimes it's like, don't speak to me right now, I'm not ready. But it's okay, as long as you're together and you work it out. And Hashem gives us a gift of Taras Mishpacha in order that we have our intimacy the way it's supposed to be, not to become bored with one another. It's such a shame to have that. There's more stories I can say, but I'd like to know if anybody has any questions. Please, this is not a halacha review. Please have a halacha review. I'd love to give one. I know Dinie, if you really want to have halacha review, please tell Shelley and she'll put it together, because every woman should have this at least once a year, a halacha review. In other words, once a year, especially if you've had children, to review the laws again of Taras Mishpacha, because people forget. It's not enough just to read about it. To have a halacha review is imperative to everybody.
If we remember correctly, actually, sometimes the answer from the Rebbe would be to review the halachas, even if people kept it properly, and even if everyone was doing what they should. Just the reviewing itself brings the bracha, brings the blessing of mikvah as well.
So
Is that
true.
correct?
It's absolutely true. And just, even if you know everything, if you know everyone knows everything, just reviewing the laws does something to your relationship, does something, because it brings the kedusha into your life. I actually have a story about that. May I share that? This actually, a lady who actually has her name on the Jewish Children's Museum. She's one of the big donors. This really happened. This lady came to me, should I say her name or not? Whatever, she came to me, and because she was sent by somebody, and so I'll start this way. This lady, very brilliant, a lawyer, and husband, a big businessman, everything they had, wealth, health, but no children. 7 times she conceived, and 7 times, 3 months should be, and the baby would just go. She went to all the high-risk pregnancy doctors, and they told her, listen, enough already, 7 times, just go and adopt, it's not going to be. But she couldn't give up on this. She couldn't give up on the fact that she really wanted to have a baby. So somebody told her, go to the Lubavitcher Rebbe for dollars on Sunday. So she went online, she went online, standing online to the Rebbe for dollars. When it came to her turn, she told the Rebbe with great emotion, I want a bracha to have children. The Rebbe looked at her and told her, go and review the laws of Taras Mishpacha. And she got pushed by. And when she got pushed by, one of the rabbis standing by, Rabbi Levi Baumgarten, he's a witness to this story. He overheard what the Rebbe said, and he went up to her and he said, excuse me, I overheard what the Rebbe said. I'm going to give you the name and number of a woman who has a bracha to teach this. And he gave her my name and number. She went out of 770. She met her husband outside. Do you think she was happy? She was upset. She was angry. She was disappointed because she was keeping Taras Mishpacha. So she said, why did the Rebbe tell me such a thing? I'm keeping mikveh. And she did not call me, and she was very disappointed. Well, you know, by us, we don't give up. Rabbi Baumgarten called me. And long story short, I'm sitting in her house, and we're learning Taras Mishpacha. And she was honest enough to tell me that she was not keeping it exact, Many things that she should have been doing, she wasn't. Many things she should not have been doing, she was. Plus, she had these long, beautiful nails. I said, what's with the nails? Oh, she says, she lived in Queens in those times. She says, the mikveh in Queens allows you to go in with nails because many women would not go if it meant cutting them off. I said, yeah, they allow it, but hello, you're doing all sorts of Chinese tortures to conceive, all these surgeries. Your nails have to go. She said, okay, Sarah, I'll do everything you're telling me, but you are going to take me to the mikveh next month. I said, that's a deal. The whole month went by and she's calling me and she said, I'm keeping everything. And finally, her mikveh night fell out on a Motzei Shabbos. My husband wasn't exactly thrilled that I'm dumping in Motzei Shabbos, but a promise is a promise. I picked her up. She came into the car and she said, yeah, look, I cut my nails. And I did not take her to the mikveh in Queens, which is 5 minutes away from her. I took her to the mikveh in Crown Heights. And they gave her the color room. She said, I feel like I'm color. And so every time I say this, I get chills. 9 months later, we went to the bris of a beautiful baby boy that she gave birth. She said the doctors were crying. They said, this is a miracle. After 7 times to miscarriage, what was different this time? What was different that she was keeping everything exact? This child had to come down to a goof that was told the right way. Baruch Hashem, a year later, guess what? Another baby boy. Sometimes when I see her, she says, look, no nails. How do you make up this story? Just that she's reviewing the laws and she was keeping them. So come on in, ladies. The water's fine. No one ever should think, oh, I'm not religious. There's no such word as being religious. Do the mitzvahs. Don't be religious. Keep the mitzvah. Keep the laws of Torah Mishpah is something entrusted to us. It's a compliment. It's a chayas, also a responsibility, but also a big compliment. Hashem is telling ladies, you're the ones who's creating the future Jewish people. We should do it with dignity and joy and keeping everything scrupulously. Ladies, as Dinie was mentioning, these ladies going into icy waters, into danger. Baruch Hashem, we're so blessed. All the mikvahs nowadays, they're like spas. What happened? What's going on? Everything's made mamish like a spa for the soul. So there's no reason to say, oh, I can't go because whatever reason. They're spotlessly clean. Persian and Sephardi people are very famous because they get very nervous about going to a mikveh if it's not clean. Mikveh is clean. It's changed every night. Now that there's sophisticated new filters. Women who go to mikveh are clean living women. Before you go into the water, you have to scrub yourself from head to toe. The water is slightly chlorinated to prevent any bacteria. I laugh when I say that because once I remember my husband told me when I came in for mikveh, I like the perfume you put on mikveh night. Put this every night. It must be in the chlorine because I didn't put perfume on. It's a smell of Kedusha. The Baal Shem Tov said, quote, no one will ever get sick from going to a mikveh. It's the opposite. We know now, I just covered this with you because the ladies sometimes tell me, I'm scared to maybe I'll get sick from going to mikveh. It's the opposite. I actually saw, very interesting, this report done. The study was done in Leeds University in England. They wanted to see which ethnic group of women have the lowest percentage of cancer of the uterus and cervix. And they saw to their great surprise that observant Jewish women had the lowest percentage, not only of cancer of the uterus and cervix, but other infections, etc., etc. And they said, oh, this is probably because the husband have Brit Milah, and that probably, the circumcision probably protects a woman from being invaded by bacteria because, Yom Kippur, because we know that circumcision does make a difference for the cleanliness of a man. The theory fell flat because they saw that Muslim men are also circumcised. However, their wives had the same ratio of problems as non-Jewish women. So the research deeper, and look what they found. They said, when a woman menstruates, the lining of the uterus comes away, and she's wide open to be invaded by any bacteria that could invade her because the barrier, the cells that come away when a woman's having a period is basically not there. It takes 7 days to build up the barrier between her body and invading bacteria. And as you see from the chart, we have 5 minimum days of bleeding, followed by 7 days of abstinence until we go to the mikveh. So the doctor came along and said, this is the reason why observant Jewish women have the lowest percentage of this illness. If I may be personal, my personal story of my own, Baruch Hashem, my mother taught me Taras Mishpacha. She said, if I can keep it in India, you can keep it anywhere. And I always did keep it. Hashem is very kind to me and helped me. I never had any problems. But before my menopause, people get, just for you to know, before menopause, people have spotting, vaginal spotting. We have to check up to see if it's damnid or not. So my Rav told me, just go to your gynecologist and check it out. So I checked out with my gynecologist, and I showed her, look, in the Badika cloth I showed her that I had slight spotting, which prevented me going to the mikveh. And she was curious. She says, what does this mean? How are you able to catch this spotting? And I'm proud to be Jewish and be able to keep mikveh. I told her, this is what we have to do. Every month we do internal self-examination to ascertain that we have no spotting in order to get to reunite again with their husbands. This doctor was very impressed. She said, if every woman would do this monthly internal self-examination, we will cut the rates of cancer in half, because one of the signs of the sickness is mid-cycle spotting. How do we know we have this? We weren't keeping this. We wouldn't. So Hashem is so kind. He says, be in touch with your bodies. Know what's going on. If there's a problem, Chas v'shalom, be the first one to know. I've been all over the world. Baruch Hashem, just name it, all the continents. Many women have come to my presentations. Many women have told me after they started to keep it. And mikveh has saved their lives because they were not keeping Taras Mishpacha. They started to do the bedikas, and many women saw they had spotting. They went to the gynecologist. One woman told me, I think it was in Australia, she said she had to have a hysterectomy because the tumor, she didn't know she had it. From keeping this, she noticed and she was able to catch it before it spread. So keeping Taras Mishpacha is a benefit. It's not Chas v'shalom a problem for us to keep.
This probably
yes. Go ahead.
This brings us back to the theme of that God created us and knows what's good for us, right? So we see this manifestation of the health benefits, and if we parallel it to spiritual, then we understand how important it is and how healthy it is, right, for our souls and for our spiritual well-being as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Ladies, I'm gonna stop you guys for just 1 second, just so we can see if anybody has a question. We are all friends here. This is a very intimate group, just us. We're doing this for all of you women to be able to feel comfortable and ask questions. We have 2 amazing speakers with so much knowledge and experience. I urge you to ask any questions if you can. You can type them down, you can ask them, you can unmute yourself and ask. And if not, that's okay too. I posted an email, I posted the chat itself is fine too. And if not, also we can, Dinie, now that we have more women on, and Sara, thank you. These stories are amazing. I can hear you all day. It's just so mamash. It's a godsend. Thank you. This is amazing. So Dinie, also, if you want to, correspond to anything that Sara Karmely said and add to it, it would be nice now that we have everyone on the panel. Sara Karmely, I also wanted to ask you maybe if you have like a personal story, also a struggle that maybe that you could share with the women. You mentioned something personal, but I know you have a lot of stories. So if you want to also share something personal, it might be nice to.
Sure. The truth is that in my book, I wrote everything about my personal struggle. But basically what happened was when I met the Rebbe, my life changed. he made a big miracle for me. And from that, I just was drawn to him, and I decided I want to keep everything, including covering my hair with a shaitel. My husband did not like it. He said, why do you have to be different? In the Persian community, the only people used to wear wigs, not now, are women who are on chemo and they went bald and had to wear wigs. Why do you want to do such a thing like this? It was a big struggle. Among other things, he also didn't like me to do, things that I want to do because the Rebbe said the woman should do it. And basically what happened, it caused a big struggle within me because I love my husband, but at the same time, I wanted to keep all the mitzvahs the woman has to keep. So I remember at one point I got very upset, and I would tell the Rebbe everything. He was my mentor. He was my Abba. I could tell him things I could tell no one else. And I remember telling the Rebbe that I want to keep everything, all the mitzvahs, covering my hair with a wig. My husband doesn't go along with it. Isn't it true I have to ignore him and do what I've got to do? And I thought the Rebbe was going to say, yeah, you do. You have to do what you got to do. No, he says, Shalom Bayis comes first. He gave me a two-part answer. Number one, he says, don't fight about religion. Because I was whining to my husband when he would tell me, what's this new thing you're doing? He got very scared because he thought I'm becoming too frum for him. So I would whine to him, you don't love me. If you love me, you'd let me. Wrong. Never ever tell your husband you don't love me. What was going on? Every time I would say that, you think, she's my wife. She knows the real me. Maybe I don't love her. Wrong. It's terrible. And plus the children were getting upset. The mom and dad are arguing about religion. Religion is bad. Wrong. Never too late to learn what to do, right? I married Baruch Hashem 57 years. A lady in California said to the same man, yet to the same man. Is it easy? No. Now I learned what to do. He still tells me what's this new thing you're doing. And I tell him, you lucky guy, you're married to me. Aren't you lucky? Jokingly, you have to just make things with simcha and joy. That's the only way to do it. The second part of the Rebbe's answer was get somebody else to be mashpia on your husband. Not me. I'm not his rabbi. I'm his wife. I wrote this in the Sheikh Abba journal, and this lady calls me up incognito. She says, Mrs. Karmely, you saved my marriage. Why? I was always nagging my husband, be more Hasidish, go to Farbrengens, go and learn. And he was dafka not doing it. I read your article. The Rebbe says, you're not his rabbi. So the moment I stopped nagging him, he started to do it. So this is Shalom Bayis one-on-one. But we know that Shalom Bayis and Mikvah go hand in hand. More than hand in hand. It brings Shalom Bayis. We don't keep Mikvah because what it brings, we keep it because Hashem says to do it. When I teach a bride, I like to tell her, I'm sure you're physically attracted also to your future husband, which is how it should be. But you want this feeling, this mutual, spiritual attachment, as well as physical, to always be there. Guess what? Hashem also wants that. He wants you to be desirable and desirous. So keep this gap between you. Shekhinah b'neihem means that the Shekhinah, you should allow the Shekhinah to be between you, meaning when you're neither, leave a space between your breasts, the Shekhinah to be there. And when you're not neither, the Shekhinah is rejoicing over your heads. So we have to do what we got to do with simcha. With simcha.
We have, Sara, we have one question. I don't think it matters who answers, but I'll introduce the question. So we have someone who's not married here on the panel, and she wanted to know how often is mikvah water changed? She doesn't feel so comfortable going in after so many women are going into the water.
Good answer. I have to just answer this. A lot of Persian women ask me this. If you're very fussy about that, call up and find out what time you open. Be the first one in the water. If the opener says 7, be the 6:45. That's it.
I guess maybe we can elaborate, like how is maybe mikvah, how is the water cleaned, how often, how is it like maybe something internal in the mikvah that cleans it out that we can like maybe introduce so women could know that it is pretty clean.
Dinie?
It's definitely cleaner than any swimming pool you've been in. That's for sure.
For sure.
Mikvah has a special filter that's constantly running, except for the moment when the woman is dipping. So during dipping time, you will not see the filter because we want the water to be stationary, but the filter can be on in between women. It can be on all night. And mikvahs today are built in a way that the rainwater is preserved and the mikvah pool water can be changed every night. It can be changed very often. Sometimes we did have a situation here where we had to change between women if it's a very extreme situation and that was necessary. And that's what we did. And it's perfectly fine. And the mikvahs are structured that way.
Wow.
But if we think about, like Mrs. Karmely said, the intense scrubbing that we do before we enter the mikvah to make sure that there's nothing that's in between the mikvah waters and ourselves. So the cleanliness and the pristine hygiene, let's say, that takes place in a mikvah is extraordinary compared to any other places. So that's something that, if this makes you comfortable, that's good. If you're still uncomfortable, it's a wonderful idea to be the first one in. It will be the clean, fresh waters that have just been filtered and or changed as needed. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Mhm. I found also interestingly about what Mrs. Karmely was saying about how mikvah affects relationships. So we obviously know that our physical and spiritual are connected. And in experience speaking with many couples, it's astounding to see how in each relationship, it plays itself out differently, depending on the needs of the relationship. So we may have one couple who needs that, one of the partners might need the initiation. Mikvah night kind of has a certain expectation that something special can happen that
Near Bluetooth.
need a little bit of space. And then mikvah really, those 2 weeks offer them that what they need for their relationship. And it's really something that I learned from tonight was by us keeping the laws the way they should be, it fills our needs the way we need them. So we may not necessarily know exactly, what we need at what time or which exactly point of mikvah will address which need. But by reviewing the laws and by keeping the laws, we know that we're bringing blessing to the whole us in whichever way that we need. And that's very special.
Beautiful. I just want to end up with this, if you don't mind, just finish. We learned about Batya, Pharaoh's daughter, was in the Nile that she sees baby Moshe in the basket. What was she doing in the Nile? She was just bathing? No, she was actually immersing herself as a mikveh inside the Nile to become Jewish. So just look, with one act of immersing herself in the Nile, she changed from the daughter of Pharaoh, wicked, he was like Hitler. Pharaoh was like Hitler. She changed from Bat Pharaoh into Bat Yah, daughter of Hashem, with one act.
Wow,
Okay.
that is so special. Ladies, anybody wants to ask a question, please feel free to unmute yourself or to write us the question. This is really for you, and we are happy to answer questions.
The question is asked over here about spotting. It's definitely should ask a Rav, or you can speak to somebody who's a mikveh teacher, because really it's good. It's a good question to keep the calendar in check. But it's very important. You should actually speak to a Rav about this and see what he says. Good
Speaking
question.
about Rav, I'd like to share a story that I heard directly from a Kala teacher who was speaking to us as young couple, and she was trying to impress on us the importance and to be comfortable asking a Rav questions. And she said a beautiful story that happened to her own sister. So it's a firsthand story that she really had difficulty with staining and spotting and being able to go to the mikvah. And at first she was a little bit uncomfortable. She was a young bride and it was not so comfortable for her to actually speak to her Rav about these things, and she didn't know what to do. And finally she got herself to actually bring the stain to show to a Rav. And she received a phone call from the Rav, and he said to her, "Are you sitting down?" And she said, "Yes." He says, "You should be sitting down and you should have your feet up," something along those lines, because the color on this cloth shows the color of pregnancy. And it was incredible to see the skill, the talent, and the knowledge that our rabbis have for the details of the mitzvah of mikvah. And just as any professional would be well-versed in knowledge of the woman's body, our rabbis have to be well-versed in this knowledge because it's part of our Torah lifestyle. And it's something that's very special to know that they accept our questions with care, with understanding, and with a tremendous amount of skill, which obviously is the power behind the power that they have from helping us to keep the Torah.
Dinie, that's so true. I had I had a woman coming to me. She was married a few years, and she was always ovulating before the mikveh night. So she was sent to me, and I said to her, you stained before the mikveh. She would miss her ovulation because her ovulation always before the mikveh night. So by the time she would go to the mikveh, ovulation was finished. So I said, but why did you check it with a Rav? I'll never forget what she said. She says, I'm too embarrassed to show it to a man. I said, do not show it to a man. A Rav is not a man. He's a Rav. He's been trained for 25 years to check bedikas and to see. Turned out when she went, the Rav told this is not damnid, it's not coming from the uterus. She had something going on in the vaginal walls, it had to be cauterized. So I'm saying people should definitely not be embarrassed to show it to a Rav. You don't have to go in person, you could do it at the mailbox. There's many ways of doing it. We shouldn't be embarrassed. It's like going to a doctor. So it's not something to be embarrassed. A lot of women are they put off going to show it to a Rav because they're embarrassed. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. Actually, one Rav actually told me that a woman came to him and showed a badika cloth, and he said, I don't like the look of this. Go check it with your Rav, with the doctor. And it turned out there was an issue going on that was not the way it's supposed to be, and he could see it from the stain.
And if someone's not comfortable going directly to the Rav, we're always available to help. There's always your local shlucha, your local Chabad Rebbitzin, and there's always a friend if you need, or a mashpia, whichever way that it works for you, that can be available to help in this area.
I'm looking at this question about not to feel forced. Okay, you haven't been together so long. The truth of the matter is that's really a woman's expertise to make sure the mikveh night is beautiful, is fun, and it's holy, but at the same time it should be romantic and beautiful, and it should be. I know it's the Yetzer Hara really gets hold of people for mikveh night. You're too tired, and you're too this, and it's too that, and it doesn't feel right, and it feels forced. That's a Yetzer Hara big time, really, big time, Yetzer Hara. Just a cute little story over here. It's not even stories. This woman went to a big rabbi and said, Rabbi, you must help me. Every month when I come home from the mikveh, we have a huge fight. Me and my husband fight, and we end up not being together. He said, I'm going to tell you something very, very Kabbalistic. Please do this and you'll be okay. Well, she said, next time you go to the mikveh, the last dipping you do, open your mouth and take a little bit of the mikveh in your mouth. Do not swallow it. Don't spit it out. Keep it till the next morning. Lo and behold, no fights. Because sometimes just talking, it's better not to go there.
It's also very true that when something is extremely holy and extremely important for us, then the challenger will always come up and rise its head and try to challenge in some way. And it's good to know to recognize this, because then we know it's not really the fight and it's not really the issue. It's just our wonderful Yetzer Hara doing its job, what it's supposed to do. And we have to do our job. We have to recognize it and put it where it has to be. Yeah. Exactly. So God willing, we together here with all sisters united on this Zoom and all of our extended family and people who we reach, we can share these beautiful words. Thank you so much, Mrs. Karmely. And
thank you, Shirley. Thank you, Dinie. You're doing a wonderful job, both of you, really.
Before we end, I just want to mention that we chose this specific day because we wanted to have this class also on a very specific time and special time. So we did this in the honor of Kav Dalet Tevet, the Yom HaIstalkut of the Alter Rebbe, who wrote the Tanya. And in the Tanya, it really brought a lot of light to the world, but it also says that Hadavar karov elecha me'od. So we really hope that we made it very clear today how close it is to all of us to make this, to engage in this mitzvah. And we are in this with you if you want to continue and joining us again, elaborating more stories, more halachas. I'm going to post my phone number on the chat, and you can text us, and we will make sure that next time we do a class, and we are also open for things that you want to talk about, if anybody wants to suggest anything, and to also send a recording to friends and to illuminate the world with the mitzvah of Taharat HaMishpacha. So thank you everyone for joining. And if anybody wants to say anything, we are still here, and you can unmute yourself and say whatever you would like to share. And again, thank you for our amazing speakers, Dinie Greenberg from China and Sara Karmely for being so amazing and for educating us on Taharat HaMishpacha. Ladies,
Go ahead.
just check your boxes because some ladies write directly to you. So just make sure that if there's any question maybe directed to you, that you see it before we log off.
Thank you. And I just would like to take this opportunity to thank Mrs. Karmely for being so open and public about her answers from the Rebbe and the guidance from the Rebbe that really has inspired all of our generation in tremendous ways. It's a pu'ul nimshechet, right? We can share the stories, and then the more people can share the stories, the more people can be inspired. And God willing, together, we will make our world very ready for the coming of Mashiach, and we meet in Yerushalayim.
Amen. Dinie, you're amazing what you're doing. You're a Mesiras Nefesh over there, but you're really your inspiration to everybody. I figured whatever the Rebbe told me, well, it's not maybe just for me. It's for everybody to learn how to do it. They could to know that Shalom Bayis comes first. That's the whole purpose of everything. And there's Shalom in the home, there's Shalom in the world.
And being in the forefront of sharing Taharat Mishpacha and sharing the beauty and the wisdom of our wonderful Jewish heritage with everyone. So l'chaim, so for bringing.
Chaim tovim.
And God willing, we'll meet again happily and quickly.
Yerushalayim with Mashiach, with the Bet HaMikdash.
Amen.
Thank you, Shelley, for organizing.
Of course, thank you. We are so honored for both of you. This is amazing. I'm extremely happy. Thank you. Have a good night. We will reach out with the recording, and for a next session, we'll let everyone know. Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you very much. And a good day, Dinie, in China. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining. Good night.
Good night, Lala Tov.
Lala Tov, thank you.